All right, good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Black Lives Matter Day. On behalf of the second annual Black Lives Matter Day Committee, I would like to thank each and every one of you for your support, for being here. As of the last RSVP, we had nearly 300 registrants for today's event. Over 100 who will be here in person, and a majority who will be tuning in via the webinar online. Before we get started, I want to give a little context for why we are having Black Lives Matter Day here at the university. Our Chancellor, Marcelo Suarez Orozco, has charged us with becoming a leading anti-racist and health-promoting institution. We acknowledge that one event will not turn the corner, but events, policies, programs, relationships, people, engagements will. And this is a part of a larger collection of efforts for our university to reflect our core values. So I want to thank Chancellor Suarez Orozco for his visionary leadership and for helping guide us in a positive direction as a university at this important juncture in our history. I also want to acknowledge Mrs. Pilar Nelson, who is helping at the registration desk. Last year, Pilar created this event, Black Lives Matter Day, and it was virtual because we were in the heart of the pandemic. We still recognize that we're in the pandemic, so we encourage everyone to please practice social distancing. We have hand sanitizer on the tables, and they're all throughout the building. But I want to honor Pilar Nelson for her outstanding leadership in creating not only Black Lives Matter Day, but the social justice case study competition. And we could just give Pilar Nelson a round of applause for her leadership. Also, I want to highlight a few other of our committee members, and we'll give a special thank you at the end. I'd like to thank Shakita Baylor, who's the Assistant Dean of Campus Involvement, Pilar Nelson, Community Director in the Office of Housing and Residential Life. I'd like to thank Dr. Steve Neville, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Ms. Cynthia Oriana, Director of Community Partnerships, Dr. Linnell Thomas, Associate Vice Provost for Inclusive Excellence and Professor of American Studies, Mr. Kareem Wade, Director of Print and Mail Services, and Ms. Danielle Wheeler, Director of Success Boston. Without this committee, this event would not be able to take place. So I'd like to give our planning committee a round of applause for their outstanding time and energy. We also like to thank our sponsors, the Chancellor's Office, Undergraduate Student Government, VPAS, Academic Support Services and Undergraduate Studies, the Cultural Center Collaborative, Mass Media, Office of Community Partnerships, and Quinn Graphics. Without their support, this event would also not be able to take place. It is my esteemed honor to introduce our Chancellor, Marcelo Suarez Orozco, who will be giving our opening remarks. If we could please give him a round of applause as he approaches the stand right now.
Happy Black Lives Matter Day, Beacons, and good morning. Welcome to our second annual Black Lives Matter Day. I am delighted to be here with you in person, happily, for what promises to be a day of reflection and thoughtful, measured action in the quest for racial justice. As you know, the Black Lives Matter movement emerged in 2013 after the acquittal of the individual who killed a young black man by the name of Trayvon Martin in Sanford, Florida. The movement was prompted by a potent, truthful hashtag @Black Lives Matter, posted by the movement's founders, 3 courageous, fearless women, Patrice Cullors, Alicia Garza, and Opal Tometi. That hashtag went viral. And in 8 years since, the movement evolved into a global, a planetary call to action. Our university, UMass Boston, is now among numerous institutions around the world to observe a Black Lives Matter Day during the calendar year. As Professor Cooper noted, from 2020 onwards, ours is to be held every first Monday of November. And it is dedicated to those who have unjustly been harmed and killed as a result of police brutality, acts of anti-Black racism, and systemic oppression and discrimination. Today's Black Lives Matter Day program will highlight the theme of, quote, empowerment through collective leadership. The rich and diverse workshops and discussions on the program, led by an extraordinary group of Boston-based Black leaders and activists, are meant to elucidate, educate, empower, and open new avenues of inquiry into the legacies of slavery, the struggle for civil rights, and the unfinished business of securing racial equality in America and indeed throughout the world. I believe that celebrating Black Lives Matter Day is vital to UMass Boston in our efforts, again, as Professor Cooper noted, of becoming a leading anti-racist, health-promoting institution. As a university community of educators and scholars, we seek to expand the essential dialogue about intersecting identities and lived experiences as we continue our endeavors to create a more inclusive, a more humane, and just and respectful UMass Boston. We value convivencia, a Spanish word with no exact equivalent in the English language, but roughly translated as harmony, acceptance. We welcome a more complete understanding of the Black Lives Matter movement and its roots in the legacy of Black resistance in America, embodied by the Black liberation struggle, the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, and the Black feminist movement, so that all of us, our students, may find transformative meaning in the historic events of recent years, events that echoed around the world. At a time when, like many other institutions, education is under assault, experiencing a cascade of racism, xenophobia, and censorship, we at UMass Boston reaffirm our autonomy and will to learn, to teach, to explore the fraught subjects that are constitutive of our shared experiences. I quote Henry Louis Gates Jr.'s acceptance speech delivered at the annual PEN America's Literary Gala a few weeks ago. Quote, "Who has the right to study, the right to teach, to broach fraught subjects at a time when the temptation to police culture has never been higher?" Today, I continue to quote Professor Gates. In various states, partisans are passing laws and resolutions in order to regulate what teachers can say, aiming to exclude critical race theory. The New York Times 1619 Project, and even ban words such as multiculturalism, equity, and whiteness. I continue to quote Professor Gates, but we must not exempt ourselves from scrutiny whenever we treat an identity as something to be fenced off from those of another identity. We sell short the human imagination. End of quote. We want our campus to be a place where everyone feels they belong, a place where students, faculty, and staff from all backgrounds come to be in convivencia, a place where young people are engaged in the hard, fraught, but essential day in and day out work of social change. We acknowledge the history of anti-Black racism in the Commonwealth, in Boston, in our nation, as well as the progress our city has made on the never-ending quest for racial justice. And we embrace the opportunity for UMass Boston to lead. And so, Black Lives Matter Day is an occasion to honor Black brilliance, Black beauty, Black joy, and the Black legacy in the city of Boston and at UMass Boston, and admire in celebration the social, cultural, and intellectual contributions of every Black student who has ever set foot on our campus. It is as well an occasion to affirm UMass Boston's long-term commitment to improving Black life on this campus. To that end, we have established the George Floyd Honorary Scholarship. We have created the Restorative Justice Commission and appointed extraordinary Black leaders like Dr. Joseph Cooper, our Special Assistant to the Chancellor for Black Life, Dean Tyson King Meadows at our largest college, the College of Liberal Arts, Interim Dean Rita Edozi at the McCormick Graduate School, and Dr. Linnell Thomas, our Associate Vice Provost of Inclusive Excellence. But the work remains ahead of us. I am pleased to note that during this day of study and reflection, a mural, a memorial will be unveiled, symbolizing UMass Boston's unwavering commitment to the Black experience and to Black lives. It will mark our gratitude for the disparate trajectories of Black scholars, activists, and advocates, and the agency that continues to emerge now and at different times since UMass Boston's founding. This mural is yet another step we are taking to ensure our campus, in our facts and in our artifacts, reflects the beautiful diversity of our campus community and uphold our core institutional values of diversity, inclusion, transformation, engagement, cultural development, and commitment to our urban public research university. Today and every day, we also express our gratitude for our Black alumni who have contributed immeasurably to the improvement of UMass Boston, the city of Boston, and the world. Let me close by thanking Professor Joseph Cooper and his colleagues on the planning committee for their brilliant work and their selfless dedication. Chiquita Baylor, Pilar Nelson, Dr. Stephen Neville, Cynthia Rayana, Dr. Linnell Thomas, and Danielle Wheeler for their hard work curating and organizing a compelling Black Lives Matter Day program of work, reflection, and study. Fellow beacons, let us seize this day, open our hearts and minds, learn and heed the call to action in the service of a stronger, more resilient, more loving, more humane, more inclusive UMass Boston. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Suarez Orozco. Next up, we will have Dr. Linnell Thomas, Associate Vice Provost for Inclusive Excellence and Professor of American Studies, come before us and give us a historical context of today, Black Lives Matter Day, as well as the historical context for the Black Lives Matter Day movement. Dr. Thomas.
Thank you, Dr. Cooper. I feel incredibly grateful to be in community with all of you today and to have the opportunity to listen to and learn from so many outstanding local leaders, organizers, artists, and activists. But I'm also acutely aware that despite this powerful program that we have planned today, Black Lives Matter Day is meaningless unless we ensure that Black lives matter daily. That bears repeating. Black Lives Matter Day means nothing unless Black lives matter daily. And it's certainly what the founders of Black Lives Matter, Alicia Garza, Patrisse Cullors, and Opal Tometi, demonstrate for us. They started Black Lives Matter as a hashtag to galvanize people politically after the acquittal of George Zimmerman in the vigilante killing of Trayvon Martin in 2013. And that hashtag quickly went from social media to social movement. The following year, these same women organized a Black Lives Matter ride to Ferguson, Missouri, to support local organizers protesting the police killing of Michael Brown. That Black Lives Matter ride brought in activists from around the country who then returned to their own communities to organize against anti-Black violence. So from its very origin, the Black Lives Matter movement has demanded more of us than shouting out slogans or showing up for a single event or protest. The movement is really about what happens after we tweet the hashtag or attend the program or march in the protest. And we already see how challenging that is. A little over a year ago, in the wake of George Floyd's murder by a Minneapolis police officer, activists took to the streets across the country and around the world, bringing attention to the ways that anti-Blackness and systemic racism is embedded in our democratic institutions, in our schools, in our justice system, in healthcare, in capitalism. There was a groundswell of support and solidarity for Black Lives Matter, including here at UMass Boston. And we can think of all the things that sprung out during that period, all the Juneteenth celebrations, the proliferation of books on anti-racism, artistic and popular culture representations, new classes and forums and initiatives, a reallocation in many cities of funding from police departments to social services, the removal of white supremacist statues and iconography, the embrace of new paradigms rooted in restorative justice, anti-racism, and equity and inclusion. But here we are, it's just the second annual Black Lives Matter Day, and a lot of that enthusiasm and support has waned. In the past year, as the Chancellor talked about many of these things, we've had states who a year ago had decreased police funding, now return to funding at levels at or higher than levels previous. We have seen a rash of anti-protest legislation, punitive laws aimed at protesters exercising their First Amendment rights. Numerous states have proposed or passed legislation banning New York Times reporter Nicole Hannah-Jones' 1619 project that places the institution of slavery and the contributions of African Americans at the center of the US narrative. And more recently, the laws banning the teaching of critical race theory in K-12 public schools. The political frenzy and strategic misrepresentation around critical race theory uphold the institutional racism that critical race theory aims to critique. Just a few weeks ago, we saw the shameful deployment of US Border Patrol agents on horseback to repel Haitian asylum seekers. But the challenge isn't only confronting those actively resisting the Black Lives Matter movement. Even those of us who are sympathetic to the movement have our own internal work to do. At UMass Boston, there are a couple of things that come to mind that we can do. We have to move beyond talking about anti-racism, equity, and inclusion and restorative justice, and make some practical steps to implement them in our academic policies, in our pedagogy and curriculum, in the educational programs and services that we offer, in our hiring and promotion practices, in our recruitment and retention of students, faculty, and staff, in our assessments of educational outcomes. Secondly, we have to foreground the leadership and contributions of Black women, particularly Black, queer, and trans women who founded and have played an integral role in this movement. As Alicia Garza writes in her history of the movement, quote, Black Lives Matter affirms the lives of Black, queer, and trans folks, disabled folks, Black undocumented folks, folks with records, women, and all Black lives along the gender spectrum. It centers those that have been marginalized within Black liberation movements. It is a tactic to rebuild the Black liberation movement. The idea is that by centering the intersectional experiences of the most marginalized in the movement, who are impacted by racism, sexism, heteropatriarchy, poverty, we have the potential to transform society for everyone. As Garza says, when Black people get free, everybody gets free. This is not a new idea. The Black Lives Matter founders are indebted to Black feminist theorists and activists, including the Combahee River Collective, founded in Boston in 1974 by women whose experiences weren't validated in the white feminist movement or the male-dominated civil rights and Black power movements. Setting a political agenda for Black women was a revolutionary act. In their 1977 statement, they explained, quote, "If Black women were free, it would mean that everyone else would have to be free, since our freedom would necessitate the destruction of all the systems of oppression." That was 1977. And I can attest here today, unfortunately, Black women still ain't free. But I'm reminded of another Black woman activist from Boston, Ruth Batson, who was an accidental activist of sorts. She wasn't educated, but she witnessed the deplorable conditions and the unequal education that her children experienced in the Boston public school system, and was motivated to become a leader of the movement for educational equity in Boston public schools. And she reflected that winning rights has turned out to be the easier part of the struggle. It is the fulfillment of the rights that have been won that creates the greatest obstacle to the elimination of racism. And that's true for us too. Black Lives Matter Day is easy. Ensuring that Black Lives Matter daily is the ongoing struggle. And it's the work that we are all called upon to do to bring about the kind of social transformation and human liberation that we deserve. And I think that the insights and inspiration that we gain today will help us to recommit to that work. Thank you.
All right. I hope everybody is excited. Thank you, Dr. Thomas, for those important contextual remarks. Today is a day of education. Today is a day of empowerment. Today is a day of healing. Regardless of your intersecting identities, regardless of your backgrounds, all of us are here today to become the best humans that we can be. That means learning about love. That means learning about pain. That means learning about how to work together. So I hope that each of the sessions that you attend today, in addition to the panelists that we will have during the middle part of the day in the keynote address, will move you to not only engage in concerted action today, but for the rest of your lives. Being committed to anti-racism is a lifelong commitment. Contrary to charges of performative activism, today's event is a part of a collection of efforts that we as an institution are embarking upon to transform our university, to transform the city of Boston, and to transform the world. The breakout sessions that we will be having this morning, and hopefully by the overview of the sessions, you'll understand the breadth of the complexity and the comprehensive nature of what we're seeking to do here on Black Lives Matter Day. The first breakout session will be Intersectionality, Queer, Trans, and Black Feminism, led by Micah Broadnax, curator of documenting Black queer Boston with the History Project. That breakout session will be in room 3545, right next door. And we will have individuals who will guide you to these rooms. The next breakout session that will be happening momentarily is Empowerment Through Social and Economic Justice, facilitated by Reverend Carrington Moore, Director and Community Organizer for King Boston. That breakout session will be in room 2215. Once again, we will have individuals guide you to those rooms. The third breakout session is titled Wellness and Centering Black Joy, facilitated by Thaddeus Miles, founder of Black Joy Project and Road to Wellness. That session will take place in room 2540, just below the campus center, just below the level where we are now. The fourth breakout session will be Lifting Black Collective Leadership, facilitated by Kevin Peterson, Executive Director of New Democracy Coalition. That will be held in room 3215, right here on the back side of the Campus Center auditorium, and we will have a guest guide you to that session. And the fifth concurrent session taking place right now is Reimagining Community Policing Strategies, facilitated by Stacy Borden, founder and executive director of New Beginnings Reentry Services, which will be in room 2545. Just to give a brief overview of the remainder of the day, hopefully you're able to attend. I know several students have class and they'll be coming later in the day. At 12:30, we will have an unapologetically Black self-determination panel moderated by our very own Cynthia Oriana, Director of the Office of Community Partnerships. The key panelists will be Amari Paris Jeffries, Executive Director of King Boston, Segun Udowu, President and CEO of the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, Sheena Collier, founder and CEO of Boston While Black and the Collier Connection, and Reverend Willie Broderick II, senior pastor of 12th Street Baptist Church. At 1:35, we will have our keynote address by Ms. Andrea James, founder of Justice is Healing, and we will be introduced by Danielle Wheeler, Director of Success Boston and Student Success. Following the keynote address, we will have a mural revealing of the Black Lives Matter mural that was painted in the residence hall here on campus. Ms. Pilar Nelson, Community Director of the Office of Housing and Residential Life, will be doing that mural presentation. We will also have a call to action, which will be led by Dr. Steve Neville. You definitely don't want to miss that. At the end of the day, we will conclude with closing remarks. So once again, I'd like to reiterate our genuine thanks to all of you. We know your time is precious. One of the most valuable things that we have as human beings is our time. The fact that you've taken time out of your schedule to spend here today, to learn, to grow, and to empower yourselves means more than you know. We are committed to the serious work of anti-racism. We certainly hope that the sessions that you attend today are informative and inspiring as you move forward in your efforts individually and as we move forward in our efforts collectively. At this time, I would like to direct individuals to their respective rooms. If you are attending the Intersectionality, Queer, Trans, and Black Feminism breakout session for 9:40, you can please stand at this time. And the session will be meeting in the room immediately next door, room 3545. All those who are heading to the Intersectionality, Queer, Trans, and Black Feminism session, please feel free to stand and head to that room now. And we will have volunteer help assist. For those who are going to the Lifting Black Collective Leadership session, my wonderful wife, Monique Cooper, who's over here, will help lead you, and Kevin Peterson, Executive Director of New Democracy Coalition. If you all will head to room 3215 for the Lifting Black Collective Leadership breakout session. All right? For those who will be going to the Empowerment Through Social and Economic Justice breakout session, facilitated by Reverend Carrington Moore, who's the Director of Community Organizing for King Boston, you all can stand, and I will lead you to that room. If you all want to stand here to my right, I will guide you down to room 2215. For those who are attending the Wellness and Centering Black Joy session, facilitated by Thaddeus Miles, Black Joy Project, and Road to Wellness, you all can also follow as we will all go down to the same area, and I will guide you to those rooms. And then the last group, for those who are going to the Reimagining Community Policing Strategies, facilitated by Stacy Borden, founder and executive director of New Beginnings Reentry Services. That will be in room 2545. Once again, all of those, for those last three sessions, we are all heading down to the second floor. you can follow me there. All right, we look forward to seeing you in your sessions. These sessions will last roughly an hour, and then you will be able to rotate rooms. We will have committee members assist you to navigate the next room that you'll attend. Thank you.